Good afternoon. My name is Richard Kaufman. I'm New York State's Energy Czar. I'm here on behalf of Governor Cuomo. Some of you know there's a primary election today, so that's why he's not here. On behalf of Governor Cuomo and the 17 governors of the U.S. Climate Alliance, welcome to the update on the Alliance. I'd like to introduce the governors. I'm first pleased to introduce our host at the summit and co-chair of the Alliance, Governor Brown. I'd like to introduce next to him Governor Inslee of Washington, who is also co-chair of the Alliance. And I don't have eyes in the back of my head, Governor Ige of Hawaii and Governor Malloy of Connecticut. And I'd like to ask Governor Inslee to begin.
Thank you. I'm Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington. The governor who's a continual competitor with Jerry Brown, who has the best wine in the world. We will continue that competition, and we hope to have a good climate to grow our great grapes in both our great states. We're dedicated to that proposition. The United States Climate Alliance is a successful organization on a noble pursuit. And everyone at this worldwide conference recognizes the nobility of this worldwide endeavor. But I've come to talk about the success of this group. And we have enjoyed 4 successes in a very brief period of our existence. The first has been the most fundamental goal of our organization has been achieved. And within about 24 hours of the president purporting to remove us from the Paris Agreement, we had stood up the United States Climate Alliance. And that alliance was formed for the fundamental purpose to make sure that the world understood that we were still in the Paris Agreement, and we are still in the Paris Agreement. To make sure that the rest of the world understood that there is intelligent life in the United States. And the 16 states and 1 territory now represented by the United States Climate Alliance is an alliance dedicated to economic growth and a sustainable future, and we have recognized both. And I want to say that that fundamental goal of the organization has been fulfilled. Obviously, when the leader of the free world, the President of the United States, says he's going to pull out of an international agreement, there could be a concern that the rest of the world has followed him. That has not happened. Not one single mayor, not one single county executive, not one single governor in the world has followed Donald Trump and his sinking ship over the cliff of climate denial. And part of that has been because we have demonstrated a success of the United States Climate Alliance in demonstrating our commitment and our action in these 16 states and 1 territory to move forward. And this group represents 40% of the United States economy. If we were a separate nation, and we are not suggesting that, but if we were, we would represent the 3rd largest economy in the world. This is a big deal. The 3rd largest economy of the world is committing to fulfilling our Paris agreements, and we're moving forward in our way to do it. It has been a success. Second, we have demonstrated a fundamental principle that is fulfilling, and that is that Donald Trump cannot stop us. Donald Trump cannot stop Governor Phil Murphy of rejoining the RGGI program to reduce carbon pollution in New Jersey. He could not stop Governor Malloy of having some of the best electric car incentives in the United States. He could not stop Governor Hickenlooper from embracing California car emission standards. With all his tweeting and all his action and all his chaos, he has not been able to stop us from our individual and collective efforts as governors to move forward with the United States Climate Alliance. The 3rd success is an important one and needs to be understood. The climate denial of Donald Trump has been focused on fear, a fear that if we beat climate change, that we could not grow our economies. The Climate Alliance has blown up that myth. And the reason is the proof is in the pudding. The states in the U.S. Climate Alliance have had greater economic growth while this group has been in existence than the states that are not in the U.S. Climate Alliance. And we have had greater reduction of our carbon pollution than the states that are not yet joining us. And I say not yet because I have good news for America. We are going to have more governors who will join this alliance on a Tuesday in November. You can count on it. And I'm looking forward to that success because the American people understand science and an optimistic future of clean energy. So the 4th success I would suggest is that we have given people what they need in a dark time. This is a dark time, given the climate denial out of the White House. But we have provided people what they deserve, and that's some hope. Hope, confidence, and a vision for the future we've demonstrated, and I want to thank my fellow governors in that regard. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Governor Inslee. Now I'd like to call on Governor Ige of Hawaii.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this. You know, one very, very important aspect of the Climate Alliance is really being able to carry on the discussions with our global partners to ensure that we move forward with the Paris Climate Agreement. You know, I'm proud of the fact that we, at this Global Climate Action Summit, announced the North American Climate Leadership, which is a collaboration amongst the U.S. Climate Alliance and the nations of North America. And Canada, Mexico, and the Alliance has committed to clean cars. We will stand united in advancing improvements in efficiency, electrification, and greenhouse gas emission performance of vehicles through information exchanges and collaboration to keep the momentum on cleaning up clean cars and clean transportation. The Canada, Mexico, and the Alliance has reaffirmed the commitment made of the North American Leaders Summit to work towards a goal of 50% of zero carbon power generation by 2025 collectively across North America. We do understand that increasing zero carbon power generation is important in our fight against greenhouse gases. We are committed to phasing out coal in power generation. Connecticut, Hawaii, New York joined Canada and Mexico in the Powering Past Coal Alliance to resolve to eliminate phase out traditional and avoid new coal power stations without operational carbon capture and storage. We are committed to reducing short-lived climate pollutants. Canada, Mexico accepts the short-lived climate pollutant challenge issued by the U.S. Climate Alliance, and each agree to develop and implement ambitious short-lived climate pollutant reduction strategies, working together to make progress in this important area. We are committed to sequestering carbon in natural and working lands all across America and North America. Canada, Mexico, and the Alliance resolve to manage natural and working lands to be a net sink of carbon, to protect and increase carbon storage capacity, and to integrate priority actions and pathways into greenhouse gas mitigation plans by 2020, an aggressive goal to ensure that we manage natural and working lands efficiently and effectively. We are committed to increasing coastal resilience. Canada, Mexico, and the Alliance commit to increasing economic and social ecological resilience of coastal communities and marine ecosystems. We understand that marine ecosystems are an important part in our fight against greenhouse gases. And finally, the Alliance is committed to promote opportunities to use the social cost of carbon. Canada, Mexico joined the partnership between the U.S. Climate Alliance, Resources for the Future, and Climate Impact Lab in order to share information related to scientific progress, to update the metric and promote opportunities to use the social cost of carbon appropriately across a wide range of policy applications. As you can see, the U.S. Climate Alliance continues the leadership of America in fighting greenhouse gas emissions and capturing carbon across North American continent. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Malloy. I'm the governor of Connecticut, and I'm here because I'm a member of the Alliance. Connecticut has joined because we need to stand up and, quite frankly, make it very clear that the United States can honor our international agreements with or without this president's approval, and that's what we're setting about to do. And as Governor Ige has spelled out, we have very specific goals and ways to get to where we need to get to. And that's been exercised in state after state, in all of the states that are arrayed before you and our other partners in the alliance. We understand that what we want to see for our children and our grandchildren, I'm recently a grandfather, is reachable, is doable. But I also have to add that if man is going to destroy our fellow man, it's either going to be by nuclear proliferation or by the fact that we ignore the simple reality that our environment is getting warmer. It is going to overwhelm us. We're approaching a point much more rapidly than perhaps we had thought earlier of a tipping point, and we simply need to do everything within our individual powers and joining our states together to make sure that we turn bad policy back, or at least that we hold our own until someone will develop better policy on a national basis. And that's why these states and others have banded together to make sure that we do things like push forward in making sure that we decarbonize our transportation system. So much of what we could accomplish over the next 10 years would be simply accomplished if we could have longer battery life, and we're near that. We can convince more people to be invested in these vehicles, and if we can ultimately make them available to everyone, and quite frankly, create an environment in which you'd be embarrassed not to have an electric vehicle. That's got to be our goal. And certainly understanding alternative energy sources and making those more affordable, which is one of the things the Alliance is working on, is extremely important. We've done that in Connecticut. And then finally, we need to blow up this argument that somehow, in some way, doing the right thing for our environment is going to cost us jobs. It is just the opposite. In my own state of Connecticut, where we've added, and we're a small state, where we've added about 94,000 jobs in the last 7.5 years, 22,000 of those jobs are related to what we're talking about at this conference today. This is doable. And we don't need leadership in Washington to make it happen. What we need is leadership in governors' offices, in attorney generals' offices, and mayoral offices. What we need is a rise up of our general population that says, we understand that we are a generation of people who have a choice to make. Will we leave this world a better place for our having lived in it? Or will we, during our time on this earth, destroy it? The time is now. The alliance is made. We know what's right and what needs to be done. And no one knows that better than my good friend Jerry Brown, the next speaker.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. The point is we've got 17 governors. You see the ones that are before you, but we are a very unified, coordinated group. What's amazing to me, as I think back when my first efforts started dealing with climate and air pollution, how far we've come on a topic that in many ways is very abstract, very diffuse, and it affects everybody. So how does any one small group get a piece of it and start acting? Very difficult subject. This summit is advancing the cause so that more and more people are aware, get it, and resolve to take whatever action they can. So yes, we need the federal government, we need the President of the United States, but in the meantime, we're going to build the momentum, take concrete actions, as all these different states are. California's, Connecticut, Washington, Hawaii, and many other states that are committed. So it's a good day, it's an important day, we've got a lot to do, and so all I can say is let's get at it.
Wondering about the criticism of President Trump and Republicans. Governor, you said that there would be, after November, there might be some more governors that will join this alliance. You have a couple of Republicans, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was a Republican. I'm wondering if any of you are concerned that the criticism of this president and the Republican Party could keep some other Republican governors away from what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, there are going to be more governors who will embrace this. You can just count on that and take that to the bank, because the American people have already spoken that they've had a bellyful of climate denial coming out of the White House. And they've made that very clear in elections already today across the United States. So we are extremely confident that the next conference we have, you're going to see more governors support this U.S. Climate Alliance. Now, as far as what individual governors do, look, they determine their own destiny. The vast majority of them, unfortunately, have decided to be in the same disastrous sinking ship as Donald Trump. And we think that's very unfortunate. And we think after this election results is seen this next Tuesday, there might be an attitude adjustment that perhaps people, including the Republican Party, should think more about Teddy Roosevelt as a gold standard rather than Donald Trump. And when they do that, we're going to have a more bipartisan solution. And we would welcome a bipartisan solution. We welcome anyone who can bring an idea to the table. Right now, there seems to be some difference in the ratios. We'd like that to improve, but here's the ratios going to improve. We're going to have more people who understand science who are going to fight climate change and not be in bed with the fossil fuel industry. That's going to happen this November.
Restate the question again.
Curious if you are at all concerned or think about the fact that the criticism of President Trump and Republicans more generally could keep other Republicans from joining your alliance.
Well, look, we're in a world of criticism. Trump tweets about California and even about me sometimes. He said, I want 500 people to come to California, and he said he might even come himself. So, look, we're in a toxic political environment. The fact is, climate change is a real issue. Some Republicans are coming along. California had one of its most important climate laws passed solely because Republicans supported it. We had 7 Republican votes. And by the way, they didn't come because I asked them. They came and said they want to do something about climate change. This election will help move us toward that day when climate and climate change is not a partisan issue. Right now, it's a doctrinal part of the Republican platform, but that will be temporary. It will change. I'm confident. November should be a good step in that direction, and I would say in the next 5 years, half the Republicans will be climate action people if we keep at the same pace as we're doing now.
Hi. So my question is, I'm interested over here in your thoughts on the attacks that you keep getting from the left. So why do you think you keep getting hassled from the left, and do you think it's productive?
Oh, is that to me?
Yeah.
Well, I get hassled by experts on all sides. Look, we're in a political environment. For every position, there's a counterposition. For every counterposition, there's a counter-counterposition. That's just the way the system works. If you ask me about the substance, California has the most comprehensive integrated oil reduction plan in America. And I say that with understatement. And we have a very good plan, and that plan, called the scoping process, run by our Resources Board, invites all parties, oil companies, Greenpeace, critics, Leave It in the Ground folk, to come and make their point. And the Air Resources Board is committed to a regulatory regime that's cost-effective, that's reliable, and that's clean. And that's our goal. You don't snap your fingers and say, now it's done. It takes a process, it takes stakeholder involvement, and that's the way it is. But we're definitely moving in the same direction as the critics. They'd just like us to go a little faster, and we would like to go a little faster ourselves. So thank you.
Governor Brown, excuse me, specifically about the critics, they say that...
Which critics?
Well,
by the way, I just read in the Business Insider that our green program is going to destroy California. That's the right view. Then you have the left view, the center view, and then my view, which is the one that counts, at least between now and January 4th or 7th.
They point to the increase in
They
point to the increase in fracking and oil drilling in California under your leadership, and also the fact that
actually oil production is going down 17%. Now the way oil works is, the wells don't last very long, but but they work in the same old fields, and the production is going down 17%. The real challenge is the consumption of oil, which has gone up. Under my administration, gone up 4%. So we got to replace the fossil fuel vehicles with electric or hydrogen vehicles, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And they also say that you and state Democrats have accepted millions from the oil industry. So how can you be a climate leader if you do that?
Hey, you know that politics runs on money, billions and billions of dollars, and all those people are in the industry. So that's part of what it is. If you want to point to a contribution, I'll be glad to comment on what effect that it's had. I would say, without doubt, California has the most aggressive green energy plans in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, the more I keep answering this, I'm going to escalate my claim of how much we're doing. We're doing a hell of a lot, okay? If you ask me if somebody wants to contribute to a proposition like Proposition 30, and they're an oil company or a sugar company or a Hollywood movie company, we'll take it, because we're doing good work to have a fair tax, to have a water system and an energy system that makes a lot of sense. So in the world of dreams, you can do a lot of things. In the world of practicality, there's a way it works. And just look at all our party officials. What do? They spend most of their time raising money. That's the way it is. And the people who are protesting, they don't need to raise money, except, by the way, there's a lot of dark money there, and I hope you'll be able to expose it before the conference is over with.
I just got done having a discussion with a manufacturer of electric vehicles. And he's from Muncie, Indiana. Spends most of his time in California, he says. But he talks about the grid and the infrastructure that we have. And I need to actually hear from each of the governors in regards to this, what you face and what you see on the ground in your state regarding the power grid, being able to recharge these electrical vehicles, what problems you're facing, and is there any commonality between all 17, if you will, or the people here as far as the issues you're facing with the grid and how we're going to approach that problem that we've got, changing it over from what we have now.
So, first of all, let me just say that Governor Brown's leadership over the years on this issue is second to none, and we can always wish we did more. Quite frankly, I wish I could have done as much as Governor Brown has. So to his critics, you've had one hell of a run. Back to your question, you know, the first thing we had to tackle in Connecticut when we were dealing with electric vehicles is this fear that I was going to run out of the equivalent of gas, power, right, electric. We built that system statewide, and people need not have that fear. We created in our own state a further incentive to buy those cars, actually up to $3,000 additional to make sure that happens. But I also think that, and quite frankly, if we don't decarbonize automobiles, less electricity will in fact be used. But the reality is that electricity is going to ultimately be far cleaner than it is today. That's why we're in this alliance. Far cleaner than how we've ever generated electricity before in the world. So making sure that there's a marketplace for that power is extremely important to expedite that transference. And understanding that so much of our pollution, in fact, comes from the transportation network means that we have a further incentive to do it. We may have to look at other things. Quite frankly, we're modernizing that grid. I'm more concerned about the grid's security than I am its ability to address the long-term issues of supply delivery. Having said that, I think we're going to have to look at things. I mean, in the not-too-distant future, maybe we'll need to require that all leased vehicles, all rental vehicles, all short-term vehicles, or vehicles used by ride-sharing organizations, in fact, are clean electric vehicles. Why wouldn't we do that? Understanding that the bulk of the larger percentage of late model cars sold in America come off those rental companies. So there are things we can do that work together, that make sure the grid's in better shape, make sure that there's a good marketplace for electric generation consumption, and that electric generation is going to be cleaner than it's ever been. And quite frankly, the push to electric vehicles will drive our economy and our ability to meet the goals that we've all signed on to in a relatively short period of time if we can solve just a few remaining questions.
The main problem with the grid right now is electric cars aren't connected to it. Okay, we got to focus on getting people to get access to cars and charging stations. So what we've been focusing on is getting people charging stations up and down our interstate system. And I'm pleased to say we've had some of the most massive expansion of that so we can get over any range anxiety. And it's working big time. So we got to focus on what we can do today, and that's what we can do today. Now, in 2035, 2040, when we start to get 50, 75% of our cars electric, we are going to have some strains on the grid, and we got to start thinking about that right now. But right now, the challenge is to get people in electric cars, and we're doing it. And by the way, you know who's the world champion on that in the whole planet? Jerry Brown. Thank goodness for Jerry Brown.
And just a quick one. Obviously, Hawaii has an isolated grid, so we're not part of what's happening on mainland. Yes, we definitely know that we need to modernize our grid, and we're working with the utilities. We passed a law that required the utility, our utility, to create a new business model because the old business model doesn't work if you're committed to 100% clean renewable energy from independent producers. So all of that transformation, we're all working together because we understand that that goes hand in hand with our commitment to a clean renewable energy future. And it can't be piecemeal. It has to, we have to get from where we are today to where we want to be in a clean, renewable energy future. Electric vehicles is part of that. It has to be part of the storage solution because making that investment in that vehicle and the batteries and everything required to charge it has to become part of that energy system. Right now, the electricity system is separate from the transportation system. In a clean, renewable future, it's all integrated into one, and that's the best option for all of us. And we're pursuing it aggressively together.